Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup of Joe show. There's a weird noise outside, so we could be attacked mid-show, but we're gonna come to you anyway. I'm Joe, and that's Jeremy. It was just a motorcycle, honestly. I'm sorry. It sounded like one of the. It sounded like one of the aliens from War of the Worlds, the new one. To me, that's what it sounded like. So I thought we were getting attacked. Anyway, that's your waste of 30 seconds for the show. We saw a movie last weekend. You all right. You guessed it. It was Woman in Gold. Helen Mirren was like driving really fast around the Austria or something. I don't know what happens in the movie. All right, we saw Furious 7. Furious 7, and let's just hop right into it. So, Furious 7, obviously, looking into it, the biggest story is really Paul Walker, the fact that he was in it, kind of, and it's his last film. And let's just say, thank God it wasn't Brick Mansions. Paul Walker. I guess just to start, to touch on the Paul Walker briefly, the movie was done right. You could ultimately tell that they really struggled to work around it, but at the same time, it really needed to be done. There were scenes. I mean, there were definitely CGI face scenes that you could tell. Not as bad as Jeff Bridges in Tron, though. I mean, it generally looked like the head belonged on the rest of the body. So I mean, there were, So I guess in the movie aspect, you could tell that you could tell that his face was CGI. You could tell that during some of the fight scenes, it wasn't him. As the movie progressed, you could tell that in some of the conversations he was having with Mia Jordana Brewster. Is that her name? Correct. Jordana Brewster. Okay. You could tell that it was someone else because actually in the films before you could see like that Paul Walker and Jordana Brewster actually had a very good connection, interestingly enough, for a movie that doesn't require the greatest acting. They actually did have a nice connection, but you could tell that she was talking to someone else because they didn't have that connection in this movie. And that was kind of weird, but kind of, understandable. That's kind of what I want to say about the whole thing. Like, ordinarily, like, if that was someone else, like, and you would just be like, okay, that was kind of awful and it took me out of the movie. But, it's Paul Walker. They had to do it this way, and they did it right. And so basically you understand why they did it. And let me tell you, the ending is absolutely, stay for the ending. It's a tribute. Well, obviously it's the end of the movie. You wouldn't leave before it's over. So watch the whole thing is what I'm saying. The end tribute is great, honestly. It's great. It brought 2 tears to me personally, and to others as well. So, I guess just to touch on the Paul Walker aspect of it. Mm-hmm. What do you think about how they handled Paul Walker?
Well, I think that they handled it pretty much the best way that they could have. Obviously it's a tragedy what happened to him and everything. He was far too young, and I guess that's the kind of thing that the world it just happens sometimes, and you have to find ways to work around those things. And I thought they handled it as well as they could. Like you said, there were certain times that you could tell it was CGI. I think in certain scenes what they did was like they spliced together like dialogue from like the older movies, and like so they could still have his voice, but it didn't sound quite natural.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, those kinds of things were a bit of a necessary evil, and all things considered, I think they handled it really well. And spoiler warning, about the end and about the tribute to Paul Walker and everything. His character does not die. He literally rides off into the sunset at the end of the movie, and I think that was a great way to do it. Like, they retire his character, but they don't kill him off. So
Right.
there's a perfect explanation for why he wouldn't be in future movies, and it actually made it didn't feel forced, because in the previous movies he'd ended up with Mia, and she was pregnant, and then they had a kid and everything. So he had a family. He had. Were they ever officially married? I don't know.
Actually, I don't
But-
think they were ever officially married, but I guess, yeah.
Well, regardless,
yeah.
they had a family and everything.
Right.
So it makes sense for for Brian to retire from the life of jumping off buses that are falling off
That's
cliffs
true.
and that kind of thing. So, and it was really genuinely touching, because from everything that I've heard about Paul Walker, people had nothing but good things to say about him. That he was just a good, genuine, nice guy, and it was in some ways the entire movie was a tribute to him, and
Yeah.
I thought it was they did a really good job.
Yes, it was done with reverence, and they shouldn't have done it any other way. And it was really great, despite that despite the necessary flaws it caused with the movie.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother us, because it was done with reverence, and it was honestly, I thought the ending was actually beautiful. So, putting all that aside, now let's talk the movie. The movie was just. I'm gonna say great. I'm gonna say the movie was great, and hear me out here. You just don't think, like every movie. You don't think, well, it's not gonna get crazier than the movie before. This jumped the shark 15 times. It was so it's just gone pure I feel like it's gone pure 80s action film or something, with just the one-liners and the just everything like that, and it just worked. I'm going to say this, though. I'm going to say that I liked 5 and 6 better than this movie, but at the same time, the movie's a blast. There are movies that make you die laugh. I died laughing at some parts. And that's the purpose of some of these scenes, and it's just it's over the top, it's ridiculous, but that's why we're there. So as long as it delivers on that, but I ultimately thought 5 and 6 actually, interestingly enough, had more of a cohesive story. And that's why I did like them better, but make no mistake about it, this movie's incredibly entertaining, and I think that I will get to how much money it made later, but I think when, and I don't think it's an if, I think when they make an 8, I'll be the first one there, and so will a lot of people. So, your thoughts on Furious 7?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. It's it was what everyone expected it to be going in. Just ridiculous, over the top, just pushing things as far as they can. They just do more and more absurd things every time. There's a scene where Dom and Brian fly out of a building and drive into another one, and then fly out of that building and drive into another one.
Yes.
And so, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
That said, Fast 5 is still my favorite in the series. I think probably Fast and Furious 6 and Furious 7 are roughly equal. I don't know. I'd probably have to watch them again. But yeah, it was definitely a good time, and I would recommend it.
Definitely. And I guess in case you're curious, my rankings would actually go. I actually liked 6 better than 5. They were actually going up for me, and so I would put Furious 7 down below 5, but still, it's still up there with the other, with the new resurgence of this franchise. I'd put it ahead of Fast and Furious, but I consider from Fast and Furious to, and that's Fast and Furious without the thes, 4. 4 through 7.
Furious. if you will.
Furious. Yes.
I didn't come up with that,
Yes.
but
Oh, okay.
that's what they should have called
That
it.
was very good. Yeah. So I mean, I think ultimately it fits right into that resurgence of the franchise. I know there was a new director, James Wan, and you could tell that there was a new director. I think I would have loved to have kept Lin on it.
Yeah.
Is it James Lin?
Justin.
Justin. Okay. Yeah, we can't have too many James. Yeah, so ultimately, if you haven't seen it yet, I think you have. But if you haven't, go out and see it. It's a very entertaining movie, and get popcorn.
That's how I eat popcorn.
Yeah. And apparently, my soda was in a Gatorade water bottle because I was shooting it into my mouth. But anyway, let's talk box office because that was also very, very interesting. Very intriguing, and based on one film that we just talked about.
Pretty much. Okay, so in light of the box office being dominated by Furious 7, I'm just going to breeze through the rest of the top 5. Fifth place was Insurgent. That fell 53% to $10.1 million. Has made $103.5 million. This continues to fall harder than Divergent, and is falling farther and farther behind. No surprises there. Okay, fourth place was Cinderella, and that fell 40% to $10.2 million. Has a total of $167.1 million. I still would have thought this would be holding better. Cinderella had a solid 2 days as the highest grossing movie of 2015 before Furious 7 just ran over everything. So third place was Get Hard, and that fell 61% to $13.1 million, giving it a total of $57.2. That's not a very good hold, and I guess people didn't like this movie that much, but if it falls that much. Admittedly, I guess in some ways it's kind of the same audience that appeals to Furious 7, people into action, funny things, I don't know. Okay, number 2 was Home, and that fell 48% to $27 million. That gives it a total of $95.2 million. That's a decent hold. I think it's slightly better, or at least on par with the drop that SpongeBob had. So, Home is doing pretty well for itself. It has a budget of $135 million, which is a lot. So,
that is a lot.
Yeah, I guess it's going to have to do well overseas regardless, but... Anyway, our number 1 movie was Furious 7. That debuted to $147.2 million. Yeah. I just wanted to give that a little time to sink in because that's unbelievably insane. That's... last year, box office was awful. We couldn't even break $100 million. Until technically Age of Extinction did, and then Mockingjay definitely did. But, it was just an off year, and it's like, man, maybe movies just aren't going to be that big anymore. But then, we get to this, and, Fast and Furious 6 made 97. So we're talking, 50 million more. It increased in unbelievable percentage, and it's just... And, it's early April, too, so it's like lots of people are still in school and that kind of thing. It wasn't a holiday weekend or anything like that. It was just a normal weekend in April. So, obviously I think a big factor in that is the whole Paul Walker thing. But, the franchise has just grown and grown and grown, throughout the last few entries. And it's just, it's incredible. That destroys any opening from last year. It's the biggest debut since Catching Fire in 2013, so that's like a year and a half. It's just incredible, really. So, Fast and Furious movies do tend to be pretty front-loaded. So, Furious 7 will probably be, fairly front-loaded as well. It doesn't have much competition in April, which is another smart move of opening it now. So... with that kind of opening, $300 million is guaranteed. It could probably do $350. That's unbelievable. That beats anything from last year American Sniper included. So, 2015 is off to a really good start, I gotta say. We have, Cinderella, 50 Shades, SpongeBob, and now Furious 7. So, I don't know, maybe Age of Ultron could open to 250. Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
The Furious 7 almost made $400 million in its opening weekend worldwide.
Yeah.
So like,
it's gonna hit $1 billion.
I mean, this movie's huge, and this movie talk show I listen to, AMC Movie Talk. This guy, John Schnepp, if you're listening, he's like, this movie's gonna make $150 million opening weekend, and everyone laughed at him, and as did I, as I was listening to the podcast. And then it like almost made $150 million.
Yeah.
This, I mean, that's huge. I mean, it's you get. I mean, that's the thing. You think of franchises. You think of the Hunger Games. You think of like Harry Potter. You think of Twilight, because those are the only movies that are like capable of hitting that number. And now Fast and Furious is in that category. Whoever thought that would be possible? And speaking of the April record that with the Winter Soldier set last year with like 90-some million, Furious 7 just crushed it. Will that number ever be touched again in April? I don't even know.
Not for years.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is Furious 7 is going to be close to the Winter Soldier's total after its second weekend. Like, it's going to blow by it.
Exactly.
Race by it, if you will.
That's the second time you use it. Don't think I didn't catch it the first time, and it was just as good then. So
there's so many car puns to use.
True.
I threw out like 7 of them in my box office blog last week.
Oh man! All right. Well, that. So basically, Furious 7 was a wonderful movie to go see, and it made a lot of money. So you probably already know it was wonderful to see. Now let's shift gears and talk about what's coming out came out this weekend. And let me tell you, it's a whole lot of nothing. Okay, there's some interesting things. Let's start with Ex Machina. It is Ex Machina, right? It's not Ex Machina.
Yeah,
okay.
No, there are going to be a lot of people going up to the ticket booth and asking for, a ticket to Ex Machina.
Yeah.
But
okay. Good. Now this movie, it's from the same studio that brought us A Most Violent Year, which I thought was actually a very good movie. It has Oscar Isaac again. Or is it Oscar Isaacs? I never know.
I think it's Isaacs, but I could be wrong.
Oscar Isaacs. We'll go with that. And it looks very intriguing. It's getting great reviews. It might be a little messed up. I have no idea. And that's a key to a good trailer, because they didn't spoil much. Unlike they did with other movies such as Southpaw, that if you've been to the theater and you saw probably Furious 7 and the trailer for Southpaw, it's, they show you the entire film. So, I mean, that's, you gotta be happy when you see something like Ex Machina, not giving away much, kind of telling you the basics. And this movie looks intriguing.
It's actually just Isaac.
Okay, Oscar Isaac, very good. So yeah, Oscar Isaac is very good. Is a very good actor. So, what do you think of Ex Machina?
I think it. I definitely think it looks interesting. I always like sci-fi movies, especially things that get a bit more, philosophical and actually examine the nature of artificial intelligence and things like that. Ex Machina isn't getting a wide release this weekend, though. It is just a limited release.
That's right. So moving on, we have. Let's just get it out of the way. The what is it? The longest ride.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why they keep making movies out of the books of Nicholas Sparks, but I don't care.
I don't know. They did make decent money. They've seen diminishing returns, and this one will probably. It might make $40 million total. I can't see much.
Right. We also have Danny Collins, which pretty much targets older audiences.
Basically, yeah.
So, I don't care. To all our 3 viewers, just go see Furious 7. If you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, just go see it again. I'm Joe, that's Jeremy. We'll be back next week.